Donald Trump has built his image as a so-called tough guy, projecting strength and bravado. But this past week has shown just how hollow that image really is. He gave in completely to Vladimir Putin, exposing how submissive he can be to an authoritarian leader, and European officials are reportedly mocking him for it. It's not only about bending to Putin. Trump also seems fearful of those around him. That was made crystal clear when protests outside the White House forced him to abruptly end his summit. We're going to break it all down, but before we dive in, if you're enjoying this coverage, please leave a like on the video, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps support our work. Now, let's start with Trump getting called out for pushing false claims during his meeting with President Zelensky, with the sharp critique coming from Nicole Wallace.
A real democracy with mail-in ballots, and we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened.
We're going to just cut it right there because all of that is completely false. The United States is one of many countries that uses mail-in voting, including Canada, the UK, Germany, Australia, and Switzerland. Also important to note, there's zero evidence of widespread voter fraud, and Trump has been looking. But that is how Donald Trump, the current president of the United States, who, as the New York Times reports, has himself voted through mail-in voting, chose to spend his time today in the middle of what we've been talking about, this high-stakes diplomacy, promising an executive order to address one of his longest-standing and most dangerous, unfounded delusions that he didn't actually lose the 2020 presidential election. Another fact check, Trump literally does not have the power to do any of this. According to the Constitution, the power to set the, quote, times, places, and manner, end quote, of elections lies with the states, and only Congress has the ability to override state laws on voting. We're back with Claire. I mean, let me just point out what happened just today. Trump tweets, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines. Well, those voting machines prevailed today, at least one of those companies, Dominion, against Newsmax, winning millions of dollars to settle the lies told about Dominion voting systems, at least. I mean, what is this obsession and delusion at this point about, Claire, and where is it heading?
It's just fascinating to me because I think Putin did this. I think our last guest talked about whoever talked to him last wins. And I think Putin said something about mail-in ballots, and that's where this is coming from. And by the way, do you remember during the election, Nicole, that he, at the beginning of the campaign, was saying, oh, mail-in ballots are terrible. And then Susie Wiles and Chris Savita and all of them that are doing the public say, you've got to quit saying that. We have to have mail-in ballots. We have a lot of elderly voters that use mail-in ballots and have for years. Quit saying that. And then Trump began to talk about
it. Is pathetic that Donald Trump has to distract, melt down, yell, scream, and try to get the media to focus on anything but his failure. This is an abject failure. The fact that Donald Trump, who promised an end to this war in 24 hours, hasn't been able to get that done is a failure that should rest squarely on his shoulders. You saw the conservative media try to spin this up as Zelensky continuing a war, but it's Donald Trump who promised to stop it and has failed to deliver because he's in Putin's pocket. We saw in a video today that caught Donald Trump on a hot mic saying that he believes Putin will stop this war for him. He is such a narcissist. He believes Putin is his buddy willing to do things to help him. That is not as what is going to happen. Which is why Donald Trump, along with the fact that he will not support our allies in Ukraine, is being protested. And it's going to lead to a bit of trouble for Donald Trump. You saw protests much like these all across Washington, D.C., with people cheering on President Zelensky as his motorcade came in and booing Donald Trump and his failures to secure peace. So, if that wasn't humiliating enough for Donald Trump, and it was pretty humiliating he demonstrated once again, as he does over and over and over again, that his loyalties lie with Putin. Because in the middle of a meeting with world leaders, what did Donald Trump do? He ran away for his buddy. Trump interrupts meeting, abruptly stopping for phone call with Putin. Donald Trump reportedly interrupted a meeting with President Zelensky and European leaders to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin on the phone. A German journalist reported that Trump took the phone call with Putin despite an ongoing meeting with other leaders on Monday. Trump interrupts conversations with Zelensky and EU government leaders after BL information for a call with Putin. Afterwards, it is supposed to continue with government leaders in Zelensky in the Oval Office, the journalist explained. Right-wing Trump ally Steve Bannon's War Room confirmed the report. He interrupted the meeting to make a phone call with all of the heads of state there to Putin. MAGA ally Jack Soyak told the show Monday after from the White House. Following a Friday meeting with Putin in Alaska, Trump adopted the Russian president's position on a ceasefire, saying it was not necessary for a peace deal in Ukraine. There are a couple of key points to highlight here. First, according to reports from a German journalist, Trump left his meeting. He didn't bring Putin in. This suggests it wasn't a group call with European leaders, but rather a one-on-one with Putin. Second, and perhaps most importantly, Trump actually interrupted his meeting with President Zelensky and European officials to go speak directly with Putin. That choice reveals where his priorities lie. It shows a level of desperation to please Putin rather than standing strong with our allies. This wasn't about tough negotiation. It was about Trump stepping aside to show deference. Time and again, he has signaled to Putin that he's willing to put him first. And that's why many observers say Trump is being played. We even saw reporting about members of Trump's own team looking shocked after his interaction with Putin, like they knew he had been completely outmaneuvered. That shift in tone explains why Trump's positions have suddenly changed. And as Nicole Wallace explained, it's becoming clear who really benefited from that conversation, and it wasn't the United States.
Today, nothing less than the very future of Ukraine and America's standing in the world. Because the meetings with European leaders happening at the White House right now as we come on the air stand to potentially reshape the global order for better, or depending on how things go, for worse. At the moment, there is a multilateral meeting underway in the East Room with a number of European leaders in attendance. They are essentially there as backup for Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, following that travesty of an embarrassment, the ambush on Donald Trump's part back in February of President Zelensky earlier this year. Earlier today, though, Donald Trump and President Zelensky appeared together in the Oval Office. Trump largely behaved himself. That counts as news. He did, though, either wittingly or unwittingly make some news. It had to do with the necessity for a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Listen to what Trump had to say on the topic throughout last week and how something seemingly changed on that topic this afternoon.
It's going to be a good meeting, and we'll go a step further. We'll get it done. I'd like to see a ceasefire very, very quickly. I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be, I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of a ceasefire. I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires.
It's not just one country that wants a ceasefire. It's Vladimir Putin's Russia. So all of a sudden, a ceasefire? I don't do ceasefires. We don't need those. Then about an hour ago, Donald Trump shared this news and a key piece of any negotiations, security guarantees for Ukraine.
The Alaska summit reinforced my belief that while difficult, peace is within reach, and I believe that in a very significant step, President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is one of the key points that we need to consider, and we're going to be considering that at the table also, like who will do what, essentially. I'm optimistic that collectively we can reach an agreement that would deter any future aggression against Ukraine, and I actually think there won't be. I think that's even overrated, largely overrated, but we're going to find out, and I think that the European nations are going to take a lot of the burden. We're going to help them, and we're going to make it very secure.
Donald Trump has been completely outmaneuvered. At this point, it's clear he's operating in Putin's shadow, with Putin calling the shots. That's not strength, that's weakness. The Republican Party loves to project toughness, but what we're seeing is the opposite. A display of weakness and desperation. And that's why we're going to keep calling it out on this show. If you support that, don't forget to hit subscribe, drop a like, and if you've stuck with us this far, leave a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.